Welcome to Meldon Law and Friends. I'm Jeffrey Meldon, back from traveling around Europe. I've been gone for 3 weeks. I think our engineer, Evan, would know better than me, but anyhow, I think that this is going to be one of the more exciting shows that we've had on Meldon Law and Friends. Before we get into our show, I want to mention to you, we've got some ticket giveaways. Let's see. Women's softball, May 6th and 7th. We're playing Mercer, and we're starting to give away tickets now. It's amazing how many folks have come up to me and said, I can't believe it. I won tickets by going to Meldon Law Facebook. And we're giving away usually one set of 4, one set of 2 tickets for every game. And sometimes we package it with a gift certificate to Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, where we're here right now. You can see behind us all these helmets that Steve Spurrier wore at one time in his career, either as a player or a coach. And it's pretty remarkable. Wow, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, almost 30 helmets. Now, how many people?
Jeffrey, you're a lawyer, not an accountant. How'd you do that so fast?
Anyhow, how does one person either coach or play for 30 different teams? That's pretty amazing, right?
Well, Jeffrey, clearly the checks didn't bounce, so I'd say it's pretty easy.
So anyhow, what else we got? Oh, Bethune-Cookman baseball coming up on May 10th. That's next Tuesday. And, oh, man, our big giveaway, Florida State's going to pack the baseball stadium on May 17th, and we are going to be giving away super packages for that. So go to Meldon Law Facebook page, and you'll see the contests for all of the baseball and softball games I've been talking about. And, we're giving away a Yeti, big Yeti cooler filled with neat swag. So just go to Meldon Law Facebook page, and it will be there as well. So anyhow, our first guest today on Meldon Law and Friends is Chris Pinson. He's the weekend sports anchor for CJB TV 20, which is an ABC affiliate in Gainesville, Florida. And he hosts the 6 and the 11 o'clock news every Saturday and Sunday. But his most important job is working with Meldon Law on the Scholar Athlete program.
You got that right, Jeffrey. Or should I call you boss?
No. Anyhow, Chris is in a long line of really successful sports anchors who've worked with us over the years. We're actually in our 24th year.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. And we've been partners with TV 20 for about, 21 of those 24 years. And it was really, I don't think you know the story.
What
about
story?
The TV 20, the Scholar Athlete program and how it got started.
I don't. I learned that it was first on radio and then shifted to TV. So how exactly did you get this started? Because, Jeffrey, my sister's a lawyer, and I know she loves sports, but her boss doesn't do anything like this. So how exactly does a lawyer say, yeah, let's start sponsoring local athletes and share their stories?
So a friend of mine, Barry Sides, was in the radio salesman. He was a salesman for the local UF station, WRUFA 850 AM.
Okay.
So Barry said, why don't you start advertising on the Sports Scene show? It's on every day from 12 to 2, Monday through Friday, with Larry Vittel. Now, Larry Vittel was one of the local sports announcers that was here for 25 years and was very knowledgeable as far as everything Gator sports.
I bet he was.
So, anyhow, we were on his show for a year or so, and we were advertising on it, and a couple, I said, well, people are listening to sports in Gainesville. We're a sports town, right? People go, a lot of the reason people turn on TV 20 News is to see the sports segment.
Listen, if you tell that to Paige Beck, the queen of this town, I might get fired, okay?
Well, even Paige goes to the games and is a big fan.
Yes, she does.
So,
she's a big fan.
So she would maybe be the first one to acknowledge that sports is king in this town. Anyhow, so we got together and we decided, let's do something to honor the great scholar athletes that we have in Gainesville and the whole area around. And we started out saying, well, we're going to give a scholarship to one male and one female scholar athlete every month. And so I hired an intern in the office, and he went around. I think it was Dan Wiseman, who's a lawyer now. He was interning, and he said, and he would go and track down really bright kids who were good athletes as well. And we did the first year, and there was only, 2 per month.
Okay.
So, and the school year is 9 months. So,
Yeah.
So there were 18. Okay, and I remember the first year, Sally Field's niece, Sally Field, the flying nun, and the thing. Anyhow,
by the way, that's a classic. That's a classic.
Anyhow, her niece, was a tennis player, and really Amanda Field, and she's terrific. So anyhow, she won for the female scholar athlete of the year, because at the end of the year we decided not only should we honor each monthly winner, but each of the weekly winners. And Dan Boyd, who was principal of Gainesville High School, came and gave a little talk to the kids and their families that year. And it was terrific. We stayed on the radio for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and then TV 20 was doing a little bit of a scholarship recognition, but they weren't giving away a scholarship or a plaque. They weren't doing an annual banquet or anything.
Right.
And it was with a good friend of mine, Bill Colleen, who had a company called Silver City in Ocala.
Silver City. I know that place well. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Okay, so anyhow, so for some reason, Bill decides he's going to drop his sponsorship of the scholarship program that he was doing with TV 20. And TV 20, we were starting to advertise with TV 20, and they said, Jeffrey, what do you think about picking up the scholar athlete? And I thought to myself, TV 20 has a lot bigger following at 6 o'clock news time than anybody else in this area.
That's right.
And the reach of TV 20 goes all the way up to almost the Georgia border, north of us, and all the way down into Marion County.
That's right.
And so it was like, oh, we can really expand.
You can really reach some people.
Yeah. And then we said, we better start doing more than one per month. So we said we're going to.
So I have you to thank for a weekly prize.
Right. That's why you're running your butt off every week. So we decided let's do one a week, and we would split it up between half male, half female, and give each scholar athlete a $100 gift certificate or a scholarship, and then a plaque recognizing their effort. I don't know if you know this, but my son Kerry actually was a TV 20 Scholar Athlete of the Year before I started this program.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
He went to GHS,
Okay.
played tennis, #1 singles and doubles, and led the team to a state championship.
Get out of here.
So
Okay,
yeah.
okay, Dad, got some genetics, got some athleticism.
So anyhow, I knew all I have left from that award to carry is a VHS tape that's somewhere
somewhere next to your wedding tape, right?
Yeah, it's in a trunk, and we need to preserve it somewhere.
That's
anyhow, so the TV 20 it started to build, and of course Alan Chapman out there was a huge fan of ours. Beth Ing and everybody.
Oh yeah,
it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, management team, sales team, they are remarkable in what they do.
Yeah, and so they got behind it, and Hank Castanga was the first sports anchor that we worked with.
Okay.
And he was great. I still have pictures in the office of us doing our Scholar Athlete, and it absolutely blew up when TV20 got involved, and we were doing it every single week. And what's remarkable is that we're actually entering our 25th year.
The silver anniversary.
Yeah,
It's pretty special.
it is. And you know, some of the people that have won the Scholar Athlete of the Year, which is, so at the end of the year, we started doing a banquet and bringing the families, and now we bring the coaches as well to the Scholar Athlete of the Year banquet, and we individually recognize each Scholar Athlete starting in September going through May. And then at the end of the ceremony, we award the Scholar Athlete of the Year for the male and female winners. And TV20 then does a big interview. They air it for one whole news cycle. And some years we've actually had a remote out there. You know, we're doing it at the Hilton Hotel again this year. And the date is May 23rd. So everybody who's listening or watching, check that out. It's going to be pretty remarkable.
And by the way, this is going to be the first banquet in, what'd you say, 3 years?
2019.
Yeah, so 3 years a hiatus. That's a long time to take away from something like this, because you know, right? Obviously, you work so hard every day in the office to try to represent so many people who need the help, and all these kids do the same thing, right? They work hard in the classroom, they work hard on the field, and so to not have that formal recognition of both parties, you the sponsor, then the sponsorees, right? I'm sure it kind of, I wouldn't say took some wind out of your sails, but at the same time, you know what it's like to get up there and look at these young faces of tomorrow's generation and say, hey, congratulations on all your hard work. I want to personally thank you, right?
Yeah. Well, so Chris, is this your second year doing this?
Yeah, because I took over for Sierra Clark in January of 21. And so, right, she had done the fall of 2020, and I picked up the rest of it and finished out. You know, and obviously I was hoping that by the summer of 21, we'd be out of COVID and back to what we are now, in person, face to face. But since it took an extra year, I can't tell you how much I'm truly looking forward to seeing all these kids I've interviewed and their coaches and to meet their parents. Because again, I ask these kids a lot, you know, why is it important that you recognize the people that have helped raise you? Why is it important that it does take a village to just raise a person? You know, and they generally give thoughtful, candid, emotional answers, because they do realize that they wouldn't be here, like you or I, without positive influences along the way. And you're one of those, because without your scholarship, without your effort to make this happen, I don't have part of this job. They don't have part of the recognition. So truly, we appreciate that.
Actually, Chris, they do the hard work. Like I mean, they're out there busting their butts all the time, both scholastically and for a young person to be able to schedule their time. Let me ask you this: how is interviewing some of these incredible young people affected you in your perspective?
It has definitely given me hope for the next generation, right? And I say that laughing, right? Because I'm barely over 30 years old, but even I can look back and say, wow, you know, it's now been 15 years since I was a high school senior, since I remember going out, you know, in all my different sports I played. Because in high school I played 4 sports. I was a basketball, soccer, tennis, and golf kid. And, you know, I remember what it's like juggling that time frame. Okay, I got practice after school. I got a project due tomorrow. I've got a paper to write, a test to study for. Right, and you've got all these things you're trying to compartmentalize and then take on your opponent, whether it's yourself in golf or somebody else trying to beat you. And so just to watch these kids and listen to them and then hear from their coaches about how responsible they are, first one in, last one out, you know, no matter the sacrifice, they make it, and they always find time to get everything in order and get it done correctly. I mean, come on. Like, how can you not be enthused about how tomorrow is going to be taken care of thanks to these kind of kids?
Well, I can't wait till the second part of this show. We're going to talk some more about it. I'm here with Chris Pinson from WCJB, who is the headliner for our TV20 Meldon Law Scholar Athlete program. And we're going to be back in 60 seconds on Meldon Law and Friends.
We are here at the University of Florida, where Albert and Alberta are competing in the Gator penalty shootout. Albert is ready to stop the shot at all costs. What a disaster! Luckily, Meldon Law is the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. If you have suffered any injury, do not worry, because Meldon Law is going to help you with your recovery. Meldon Law doesn't back down until they reach their goal.
We still hear it. The sound of victory. The joy of being part of something great. And while things may not be the same right now, we haven't gone anywhere.
If you bleed orange and blue, then Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Welcome back to Meldon Law and Friends. We're here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. My guest is Chris Pinson from TV20. He's the weekend sports anchor and heads up our TV20 Meldon Law Scholar Athlete program. And Chris, this is a pretty cool place to do a podcast, isn't it?
Are you kidding me? Right, on the first segment, we talked about all the helmets that are in here. I mean, right, this is actually my first time being in this building. I have yet to come here, and it's been open for a few months now. This is absolutely gorgeous. Between all of Coach Spurrier's memorabilia, his playing stuff, I mean, the pictures, it's just, this guy knows how to do it upright, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, there was a big team, including our good friend Freddie Wiebe, who helped plan and put this together. You know, they went to over 50 sports celebrity restaurants around the United States to find out what made them successful and what made others not so successful.
Why am I not surprised that Coach Spurrier went to those lengths to game plan for his own restaurant, right?
No, I mean, and everything was thought out. They also, this restaurant was designed as a host restaurant for recruiting Gator athletes.
Coach always has a few extra options in his game plan, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, you know, he's the, University of Florida ambassador.
I mean, he lives up to that reputation and then some.
Well, think about it, okay? He has been like this huge deal for the University of Florida going on 58 years or something like that, okay? And I think Danny Warfel's a big deal, but, Tim Tebow's a bigger, internationally known.
Yes.
And I was thinking the other day, as far as, famous Gators that everybody knows and recognize, there's two, which is Spurrier and Tebow.
That's right.
I mean,
yeah, those are the two Mount Rushmore people, right? I mean, after that, you could put Billy Donovan on there and maybe another athlete, but yeah, if you're talking Gator football or just Gator sports, it's the old ball coach and Tim Tebow, no doubt about it.
Not the old ball coach, the head ball coach.
Right, the head
he
ball
will
coach.
chop your head off if you call him old.
By the way, so I do find it funny that I'm here in Gainesville working covering sports. I say that because I came from Sebring, Florida, when I had a 2-hour radio show on an ESPN affiliate. And my boss there was a man named Michael Ewing. And Michael Ewing, his greatest claim to athletic fame is that he was a part of the 1966 Missouri Tigers team that beat Coach Spurrier in the Sugar Bowl.
Wow.
And I remember when Coach Spurrier appeared on the popular Golf Channel show Faraday, and he was asked about, what's one loss or what's one game you'll never get over. And Coach Spurrier said, "I can't believe we lost that dang Sugar Bowl in '66."
No. And Coach Spurrier is here a lot. One of the things we try to do on the podcast is let people know come out here. It's an amazing museum.
Oh, it's beautiful.
The food is all farm to table. It's all locally grown and sourced, and the food here is top notch. The atmosphere is fun, and if if you're a Gator fan, it's like you're
it's
in
heaven.
here, you know? It's like,
Jinx.
oh,
Yeah, right
okay.
between where we're sitting on the first level, you got visors up top. I mean, Coach has done this place up right. Although I do have to say, I kind of feel like an animal at the zoo. You got patrons outside a little studio here eating behind us. So I'm like, hey, I'm a mime.
Well, so Chris, when we started the show, they were only open Wednesday through Sunday.
Okay.
And then Coach and Freddie decided they were going to open Tuesday.
Okay.
And I think they started at 3 o'clock, and then they decided, well, we're going to open at 4 o'clock. And that's how we became the animals in the zoo. Okay.
Well, I'm glad they opened that extra day.
but there's lots of podcasts that go on here all week long.
Wow.
Pat Dooley and the head ball coach do one here Monday. What time is it, Evan? They do Monday in the afternoon, I think. 2 p.m. Yeah, and there's a lot of really cool podcasts going on here all the time. And this room was designed as a podcast room.
That's incredible.
Before-
A podcast studio in the middle of a restaurant.
Yeah.
That's a great concept.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know, but when graduation weekend last weekend,
Oh, I'm sure this place was as busy as it can get.
well, I mean, Tebow was in one room. Okay?
Oh, man.
Okay, they had all the big Gator donors were in another room. They had Coach Napier was here with his crew, and so this has become, the hangout.
Yeah. Honestly, Jeffrey, what this kind of reminds me of, the way this is set up and the way that you can be an average person and walk in and you can see and sometimes meet some of those upper echelon celebrities. It reminds me of my dad is 66, and he would tell me about friends he had in New York, that they would go out to certain restaurants after the Yankees games, when guys like Whitey Ford and Mickey Mantle and all these guys would go out and go down to Yogi's or some bar and, hey, after the game, yeah, that's Mickey Mantle, comes here every game.
Right.
That is the best thing for a fan because you get to see your idols up close. And hopefully they live up to the idol reputation. But either way, you get to see these people and say, they're just like you and me. They're just out for a drink and a great meal. And where else would you rather have it in Gainesville, Florida, except Spurrier's?
Yeah, and the head ball coach is here regularly. He's at least here 4 or 5 days a week and looks forward to meeting people. I think he recognizes his position and that he helps really promote Gator athletics.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for Coach Spurrier, who not only is one of the greatest sound bites of college sports there is, but again, he, as you said, he understands his role. He realizes that he is an icon in this town. Right now, like a lot of other famous people, he could go somewhere else and hide and just enjoy his peace and quiet, but he realizes why his name and the Florida brand are really synonymous. And with him having this restaurant and just being a likable guy, whether it's in here, on the football field, or on the golf course, again, when you meet somebody of his ilk and you see how down-to-earth they are, that's when you're like, wow, that's a really cool person. I'm glad that money or fame didn't change who they are.
And I'll tell you, Chris, you talk about sports sound bites. The 1990s in Gainesville and Tallahassee created the greatest sports sound between Bobby Bowden and Steve Spurrier.
Man.
The two of them were two of the most competitive coaches ever.
Oh, yeah.
And
they had some pretty good teams to go with that competitive spirit.
And you know what's amazing? They never hung out and socialized or anything while they were coaching and
Wow.
rivals and stuff like that. When Bobby Bowden was near getting near his deathbed, I think it was last year.
Yeah.
His wife called up Coach Spurrier and said Bobby's going and he wanted to meet with you and hang out a little bit.
That is really cool.
And of course Steve went up there and
Of course, yeah.
and they spent time together and it's like sometimes your biggest rival is in many ways the most significant person in your life.
Agreed, right? And a lot of times it's almost like you are looking in the mirror, right? Because even though obviously Coach Spurrier is not as old as Coach Bowden, those two with the way they could game plan, how they could recruit, how they could get the most out of their players, Man, I mean, those games in the 90s were just absolute wars, and everybody knew it. I mean, even Coach Bowden said after that first meeting in 96, boy, I'm glad we beat them this time because we might not do it again. And sure enough, Coach Spurrier knew we're going to blow these boys off the barn doors.
And I was there at the game. I mean, that was...
Oh, that must have been electric.
Oh, it was. And the 80s belonged to the Miami Hurricanes.
Yes, they did.
Jimmy Johnson, Howard Schnellenberger, and they had, but the 90s belonged to Florida State and Florida.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, every single year, and it was actually, Alabama did not have a winning record against the head ball coach. And
which we can't believe today because of how good Nick Saban is.
Yeah. And so it was an absolute incredible time period, and now I think the restaurant is kind of celebrating what occurred, and most importantly, the future.
Of course,
because like I said, Napier, John Golden, they're going to all be using this as one of their prime recruiting tools.
Of course,
in the past, there were other restaurants that you could bring the families to. However, they were not set up to really be a good recruiting tool. Anyhow, I'm here talking sports with one of the most knowledgeable sports guys in town. For a younger guy. Some of this stuff, Chris wasn't even born when this stuff was going on, but as a sports dude, you gotta, you gotta
know your material, right?
You gotta know the material. You gotta know. So anyhow, we're talking about the upcoming Meldon Law TV 20 Scholar Athlete Banquet, going to be at the Hilton coming up Monday, May 23rd. And it's going to be covered extensively by TV 20. We're going to all wait to see who the Scholar Athlete of the Year is. I'm going to give you a few names that have been former winners. Freddie Swain, wide receiver, playing out in Seattle now.
Yep.
Cornelius Ingram, tight end, who was both football and basketball star, and it's kind of like the... runs Hawthorne, Florida.
You got that right. I always joke with him because whenever I see him, especially on the basketball court, I always laugh and say, Coach, it's a good thing I'm not a paying customer to sit in the stands. He goes, why? I said, because I got to sit behind you. I said, I want a refund. I said, you're wide as two door frames. I mean, he's a big man.
Big dude.
And his son, who's going to be a sophomore in the fall, that kid's is following right in his footsteps. He's going to be a big guy, too.
Well, and Cornelius is a better human being than just about anybody I know. We have Andrew Miller, was a great pitcher, who just recently retired, and he was our Meldon Law TV 20 Scholar Athlete of the Year. C.J. Spiller, Tim Jernigan, Laramie Tunsil, Kavarius Hayes, who played basketball. He was from Suwannee County. So we have a tremendous talent group, and every year I'm humbled by the qualities of the kids that are going to be there and their parents. So I think it's going to be really fun and exciting, and I'm going to have you do your little speech. I'll do a little speech, and maybe we'll have some surprises.
Trust me, Jeffrey, I cannot wait. It's going to be a blast.
Okay, well, we are done with the first segment of TV 20 Meldon Law Scholar Athlete of the Year presentation and warm-up. We're going to be back in 3 minutes with the second half of Meldon Law and Friends. Thank you very much for joining us, Chris.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
When you're a member of the Gator Nation, you know what it means to never back down. Meldon Law has been a proud supporter of the Gator Nation since 1971. Two forces that won't back down. As the old saying goes, if you can't beat 'em, join 'em. Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident?
When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down. The Gator Nation will be the first to tell you that in all kinds of weather, we all stick together, which is why Meldon Law is honored to be the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. We hope you never find yourself the victim of a serious accident, but if you do, our team is here for you. Gators won't back down from a fight, and neither do we.
Oh my gosh, I can't even believe this. Look what you have done to my truck.
Excuse me, it's your fault, it's not my fault.
Yes, it is your fault.
No,
I am calling Jeffrey Meldon from Meldon Law.
So I'm gonna call Jeffrey, my husband.
Meldon Law, this is Jeffrey speaking.
Jeffrey!
This crazy lady here, this crazy lady here might...
New client?
Yes, but this one might be a little tricky. We still hear it. The sound of victory. The joy of being part of something great. And while things may not be the same right now, we haven't gone anywhere.
If you bleed orange and blue, then Meldon Law is the firm for you.
We are here at the University of Florida, where Albert and Alberta are competing in the Gator penalty shootout. Albert is ready to stop the shot at all costs. What a disaster! Luckily, Meldon Law is the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. If you have suffered any injury, do not worry, because Meldon Law is going to help you with your recovery. Meldon Law doesn't back down until they reach their goal!
Well, I was in a truck accident. Because of the accident, I've resulted in 3 back surgeries. We saw advertisements on TV, and guess who popped up more often than not? It was Jeffrey. The communication that he provided was so appreciative. He shows his compassion as a human. He assisted us in achieving one of our dreams, the acquisition of a home, and we're here today with smiles on our face with the assistance from Jeffrey.
Welcome back to Meldon Law and Friends. We've got a great second half of the show. Before we go to our show, I want to mention again, Meldon Law is giving away great tickets for baseball and softball games. They're coming up, let's see, softball, we've got Mercer coming up May 6th and 7th. We've got Bethune-Cookman baseball game May 10th. We've got a big game against FSU May 17th. And, oh, wow, we are going to be giving away the first pitch opportunity for the Florida State game on May 17th. I didn't even know that until I looked down on my cheat sheet here.
That's a pretty good package deal.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah. So you can get a set of 2 or 4 tickets for the Florida State game, which will be sold out. It's a Tuesday evening game at 6 o'clock. And you can be the star and get out there and do the first pitch.
Not bad.
So anyhow, we're excited. And Meldon Law is also giving away a Yeti cooler, because if you're going to, go have a good time outside, then you have to have a Yeti cooler.
That's one of the best ones out
nearby,
there.
right?
Yes, sir.
That's it. So anyhow, go to Meldon Law Facebook page, and all the contests are there, and we really are excited to be able to share this with our fan base, our friends, and everybody, because we get 6 tickets for all the athletic events, and we turn around and give them away to the community. Join us. Have a good time. Anyhow, I am here with my special guest, Brian Pope, And I guess I can call you Batman, huh?
Been doing this for about 25, 26 years now. So yeah, it's been quite a while that I've been doing.
Not
doing
in the
this, working with
movies,
bats.
Batman, but a different kind of Batman, right?
Correct. A little bit different, but we're still trying to save the planet with what we do and the animals that really has become a part of our history since we were founded in 1989.
Okay, so let's go back and talk a little bit about. You live in Gainesville, Florida, right? And how bats became important in Gainesville, Florida.
Well, like I said, we were founded in 1989, and whenever we originally founded, the gentleman who put this all together really had an interest in endangered species. And at one point, we had the world's largest collection of European bison. We had primates out there. We had birds, but he had also had a very special interest in bats, especially the old world fruit bats. So we're talking flying foxes, 5-6 foot wingspans. Unfortunately, he passed away 2 years after we were founded, so the decision was made to, okay, let's focus on what he really was passionate about. So for 33 years, we've been focusing on not only these old world fruit bats, these large flying foxes that are found in Asia, Australia, South Pacific, in that area, but also right here in Florida. So we're putting up, in 2 weeks, we're putting up 2 bat houses at PK Young. So that's going to be our 109th and 110th bat house that we've put up here in the state. We've also worked with some extremely endangered species here in Florida, particularly Florida bonneted bat, which is one of the most endangered species in the world. It's found right here in Florida. So we've done everything from working with bats all over the world. We got projects right now in Fiji, New Caledonia, to working with bats right here in Florida. We do a lot of education, a lot of conservation, a lot of community engagement as well.
And you're with, is it Lubee? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Lubee Bat Conservancy, correct.
And what does the Lubee come from?
That was our nickname of our founder. His name was Louis B., so they just called him Lubee. So it's stuck. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was his secretary that mentioned that to him, and he's like, yeah, that's fine.
That's
so,
fine.
That's fine. Let's go with it. And here we are, founded in 1989, so we're going on 3 years, July 31st. 33 years that we've been around. And we've been from here, it took me about a half hour to get here because we're up kind of by Brooker. So if you take 75 to the Alachua exit, we're 15 minutes towards Brooker, but actually we've got a Gainesville address, but just a little bit south. So we've been, Florida's always been obviously home of the Gators, but you got the Lake Alice bat houses, which we're not a part of. Actually, but myself and our one maintenance guy was there on Friday helping them out with some of their bat houses.
Do you know the story of how those bat houses got put there?
I knew there were some bats that took up some residence and were being a little bit pesky and not wanting to leave. Am I correct in stating that?
It was the track and field facility near where the baseball stadium used to be, and O-Dome and stuff like, in the football field. And the bats took up residency in the stands over at the track and field. And of course, they'd have tons of fans coming there for certain events during the, and the bats were, not interacting with the fans apparently in an appropriate way. So they said, what can we do to get rid of the bats that are here? So somebody said, oh, let's go build a bat house, down the road a little bit, and somehow, I guess, capture the bats and move them there. And
I think they try to do some exclusion work to get them out, because you can't take them from a house and put them next to them. Like, what is this, scared to death to leave? But whatever they did, I believe there was a gentleman there at the time named Ken Glover. Whatever they did to try to exclude those bats and get them to move, it worked exceptionally well. Because now they think there's about 500,000 bats in between those 3 houses.
Wow.
Yeah.
500,000.
Yep. It's the largest inhabited bat house colony in the world. So not only do we have, Gainesville is home to the Gators, it's really home to the bats, because you have the Lake Alice bat houses, with 500,000, and then you have Lubee Bat Conservancy, which we're the one of a kind in the world. We're the only facility that houses endangered species of bats while maintaining active conservation and education programs. And I should mention that we are a certified related facility with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. Other certified related facilities and accredited zoos are Disney's Animal Kingdom, or with the AZA, Columbus Zoo, San Diego, so the big ones. Lubee's also a part of that. And I should mention this. When I came down here, not a lot of folks know this, but whenever I came here from Pittsburgh, you and I just talking, you're a Cleveland guy, I'm a northern guy as well. Whenever I came down here in 1996, Disney was actually housing their animals at Lubee while they were building the Animal Kingdom. So there would be giraffes and rhinos. Now, those weren't Lubee's animals, but they were Disney's, but I would just work alongside these people. So it's kind of like a little bit of Gainesville knowledge that Disney kind of had a kind of little station out here while they were building the Animal Kingdom. And actually eventually went to Disney, worked there for about 10 years because Lubee was loaning some of the bats to Disney. And they're like, why don't you come on down to Disney? And I'm like, all right, that sounds good. So I was down there for 10 years, and I came back in 2007 as curator, and then 2011 I took over as director, and just I absolutely love what the organization stands for, the work that we've done here in Gainesville and around the world, and opportunities like this. I thank you very much because we like to get out there in the community, talk about what we do, how we work with school kids. We've built schools around the world. We've helped to empower women's groups. We've protected forests, worked with governments and communities, and people, we're still getting the word out there. I remember when I took over as director, people were like, aren't you guys like a cult? Aren't you a farm? And I'm thinking, okay, we need to do something with our education program here. So we've been doing a lot more community engagement, and opportunities like this help us to spread the word and talk about what we do.
Let's talk about why bats are an important part of the ecosystem.
Well, one of the things that we like to say is outside of mammals that, folks might eat, cows, pigs, chickens, that sort of thing. Not chickens, they're not mammals, they're birds. Bats are some of the most important mammals to humans. So every night they're out there eating mosquitoes, eating agricultural pests. If you've got cows or horses or donkeys, any of those biting flies, those bats are eating those insects. There was a study done by the U.S. Geological Survey back in 2011 that showed that bats save farmers between $4 and $53 billion a year by eating those mosquitoes and reducing pesticides. And then you have fruit bats like we have at Lubee. The majority of our bats, we have about 150. The majority of them are the fruit bats, these flying foxes. So these guys. There's Arthur. That's one of my favorites right there. Big old piece of watermelon with them right here. So the majority of our bats are like this. And this guy, unfortunately, he passed away a couple years ago, but he's my favorite. And we actually have his skeleton on display at Lubee so people could see what they look like. They're mammals just like us, So we thought it'd be neat that after he passed that we want to do something special with him. But majority of our bats are these guys, are old road fruit bats and flying foxes. But we also have some native bats, some little insectivorous ones. A couple of them had to have their wings amputated, needed a home. But these kind of bats are very important when it comes to seed dispersal and pollination. And we always hear about deforestation, the rainforest being cut down. They've done studies in Central and South America and also in Southeast Asia that 90% of the regrowth of those rainforests are because of bats. So there's many agricultural products we depend on, like mango and cashews. If you like a margarita here at Spurrier's, come on down, get a good margarita. That tequila is coming from the agave plant. Bats are the only ones pollinating those flowers. So from an economic standpoint, from an ecosystem service standpoint, agricultural, bats are some of the most important mammals to humans because they eat those insects, they're pollinating those flowers, they're spreading those seeds. And we always use the hashtag most important because they really are. And they're a very maligned species. There's a lot of myths associated with them. Trust me, if we were the Lubee Panda Conservancy, it wouldn't be so hard to raise funds and keep our operations going. But
talk about that. What are some of the misconceptions about bats?
I think one of the things is that they're just not really important. So you and I just talked about them. I mean, they're very, very important animals to have around. It's a myth that they're blind. They can all see very, very well. They may have very small eyes, but they can see great. When I first started working with bats in '96, there was about 900 known species of bat. Now, today, there was about 1,450. So really, in 2.5 decades, they found over 500 species. And you can take those, about 1,200 of them are the kind that we have here in Florida and really all over the world, for the most part smaller. They echolocate. So you could put up a strand of hair, and they will go around that strand because that's how precise that echolocation is.
Is that like radar?
It's exactly what it is, yeah. So dolphins and orcas, things like that, will use the same thing. So they use echolocation, but even those 1,200 species that use it, they can still see very well. So if they're out at night and they're hunting and they're moving around trees, it's just an easier means to get around. And then you got like these guys, the big fruit bats, they don't use echolocation. They're fruit bats, so their food's not really going anywhere. So but they've got big eyes and they can see well. So it's a myth that bats are blind.
But do the fruit bats go out primarily at night?
Actually, it's a great question. Their activity patterns usually mornings and evenings. So it's called, you got nocturnal at night, diurnal at day. These guys, crepuscular. I got some more pictures of these guys right here. They're actually crepuscular, which means active mornings and evenings. And this is our beautiful girl, Grace. This is called a Rodrigues fruit bat. At one point, this is one of the most endangered mammals in the world. Only about 70 of them left. They're found on one little tiny island off the east coast of Madagascar. And Lubee got involved with a woman back in the 90s who started a grassroots environmental campaign, really getting the community involved. And we fund a program there every year. Now there's about 16 to 20,000 of these guys on the island. So, one of the main things we do is conservation. It's good to know that there are success stories out there, that it's not all gloom and doom.
I'm being educated today because I know that the survival of the world is very much tied to the success of having thriving bee colonies as well. It sounds to me like bats do a lot of the same thing that bees do.
Yeah, birds, bees, and bats are really some of the keystone indicators of how our environments are doing. And you hear about bird populations declining. One of the main reasons is cats. So if you have any cats that are running around outside, please bring them in. Bee populations are plummeting because of colony collapse disorder, and then bat populations as well. So about 40% of the species in the United States are considered threatened or endangered, and 25% worldwide. So really those three types of animals, birds, bees, and bats, are environmental indicators. And whenever we hear about their numbers going down, that has ramifications for humans as well. And I've really been thinking of the concept of we really need to look at insects as well. We really need to start, because everything really starts, and you can go lower to fungus and all that stuff, but insects are very important to how the whole world really interacts with each other when it comes to ecosystems and agriculture. And we need to start there and protect the bees, protect the birds, and protect the bats, because just like you said, they're the ones out there that are pollinating seeds and pollinating flowers, dispersing seeds, but also controlling mosquitoes and a lot of agricultural pests. So very good point. We need to protect those animals, and that's what Lubee's trying to do.
Well, I think that's really important. I mean, look, in the Bible, they talked about, what went on in Egypt, right? Mm-hmm. With, the plagues and the, pestilence and, whether it was insects or, whatever was going on. It's not something that just started recently.
Right. And the Bible also says we need to be good stewards of the earth. And I think conversations like this, bringing awareness to it, and the things that Lubee and other organizations are doing, is really where we need to start.
Well, we're very excited to have Brian Pope from Lubee on the show. We're going to take a 1-minute break and be back on Meldon Law and Friends.
We are here at the University of Florida, where Albert and Alberta are competing in the Gator penalty shootout. Albert is ready to stop the shot at all costs. What a disaster! Luckily, Meldon Law is the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. If you have suffered any injury, do not worry, because Meldon Law is going to help you with your recovery. Meldon Law doesn't back down until they reach their goal.
We still hear it. The sound of victory. The joy of being part of something great. And while things may not be the same right now, we haven't gone anywhere.
If you bleed orange and blue, then Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Welcome back to Meldon Law and Friends. We're here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, great restaurant and a lot of fun. I'm here with Brian Pope, who's talking to us about bats and why they are important to us. Remember, go to Meldon Law Facebook page, and there's tons of great tickets going on. We've got Florida State's coming in town in 2 weeks, and we're giving away the first pitch, along with a package of 4 tickets and 2 tickets to the game. It's going to be an absolute blast. Meldon Law is going to be doing a local party for our team at the Florida State baseball game. And for those of you that haven't been out to the new ballpark, the Condrum Baseball Stadium as it's called now, you're missing a great opportunity. It's so much fun. Baseball is kind of a slow game, and you just kind of hang out. It's beautiful. You can sit on the grass there and watch what's going on, bring a picnic blanket and some food to eat. It's great. So enjoy it and join us out at the old ballpark. And the Lady Gators have a equally spectacular softball stadium. So check them out as well. Anyhow, I'm here with Brian Pope, who is head of the local Lubee Bat Conservatory, and we're talking about the importance of bats in the ecosystem and how the birds, bees, bats are all important to make sure that we have trees growing and plants growing, and without that, then we don't have all the oxygen that we need, right? And there's lots of stuff that is all interconnected. What are some of the misconceptions as far as bats? I mean, I remember people, worrying about, the bats are going to get in my hair, and they're going to, carry disease, and they're, stay away from bats. So bats kind of had a bad reputation, except for Batman. Right. And he had a good reputation.
Yes. Except for the Joker and the Riddler. They didn't think he had a good reputation. Anyway, but no, that's a good one, and we might as well talk about it. We'll talk about bats and their association with diseases. So we'll talk about rabies first. They don't have rabies. They can get rabies. You and I can get rabies. Our cats and dogs can get rabies, but they don't just have rabies. The number they think is about 1/10 of 1%, or maybe half of 1% of all bats have rabies. But whenever they do get it, their bodies are so small. Talking about the Florida species, that whenever they get it, they succumb to it very quickly. So if you see a bat on the ground, or really any type of wildlife on the ground that you can approach, something's wrong with it. Call animal control, Florida Wildlife. If you're a child, talk with an adult. But bats and diseases. So bats are actually very clean animals. They groom themselves all the time, and they're associated with COVID. So we might as well just talk about that. There's the thought that bats caused COVID. That actually came from 2013. They had one sample from one bat called the intermediate horseshoe bat. We know that there's over 1,400 species of bats out there, and that virus that they found in that one species of bat over in Asia, that virus is 96.3% similar to COVID. Okay, this is apples and oranges. Our DNA is 98.6% the same as chimps. So they have not found COVID in bats. They're not spreading SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that causes COVID. They don't have it. They don't know whether this virus came from a civet or a pangolin or any other mammal, or if it was created somewhere. We don't know, but the bats are not out there spreading it. They have given bats that virus in captivity. We have a species here in Florida called the big brown bat. It's actually found from Alaska all the way down into Central and South America. Very small control group, but the National Wildlife Health Center in Madison, Wisconsin gave that virus to those bats, and they couldn't get it. It was two puzzle pieces that just didn't lock.
Oh, because they were resistant to it?
They just couldn't get it. It didn't bind to the receptors in their lungs, so they couldn't get it. They did a similar study with a species of fruit bat over in Germany. They had them in captivity, and I think 1 out of 9 got it, but it was very low. There was another study. I'll make this real quick. I don't want to bore the guests or anything talking this scientific stuff, but I think it's important to say that, again, bats are not out there spreading COVID. That UC Davis did a study where they published a paper where they looked at the morphology of those receptors. So we know SARS-CoV-2 binds with our receptors in our lungs. They looked at 400 species of mostly mammals. Humans and carnivores and apes were very high, whereas every species of bat they knew of were low. So they're not carrying disease. We've been around these bats for generations, hundreds, thousands of years. We're not getting anything from them. So there was a lot of false blame put on bats for COVID, a lot of pretty horrific things, and I think what we need to do is just focus on the importance of them. This opportunity is fantastic, Mr. Meldon, so definitely appreciate it, but really talk about how important they are, not that they're out there, or these myths that they're out there spreading to the diseases, because they're not.
Now, what is it about bats that make people want to eat them as food? Because I know in Asia they're considered a delicacy and all of that. First of all, is it the same thing as us eating any other animal? What's the deal with why the Asians seem to have bats on their menu?
So they eat them in quite a few areas. They eat them in Africa, in Asia, South Pacific Islands, Papua New Guinea. So it's just been part of their culture. And whenever we do some of these conservation projects, you want to work with the locals, and you want to work with the hunters, okay, because they're not the ones just decimating the population. So they're going to eat them, but if you are going to work to try to protect some of these bats, let's work with the communities who are hunting them. What we don't like are the poachers. And the local communities that eat them like that don't like the poachers because they're overhunting them. And it's unregulated. They're killing these bats during maternity season. They're taking them out without any controls whatsoever. So they do eat them over there, and they eat them in quite a few areas of the world, but it's unregulated overhunting. And what happens is whenever you take these bats out, you're taking out their ecosystem services that they provide. There's one island called Pemba Island that is kind of in between Africa and Madagascar. Years ago, we did some research over there. We funded some work working with local communities. That's a key, is you always work with the local communities because those are the people that live with these animals. You want to work with the communities. And long story short, there were poachers that were coming in, other communities coming in that were overhunting these animals, and all of a sudden, the fruits weren't being produced. The pollination wasn't happening, and they really couldn't understand why, and it's because the main pollinators of these trees are just nowhere to be found. So we had worked with the locals and the communities, and long story short, that went from a critically endangered species up to one whose numbers became stable, and they saw those crops that they depend on come back. So it's important that to work with those people who may be hunters, but the problem are the poachers, and that's where the problems lie, and that's what we try to where we try to intervene.
So diseases with bats and eating bats is not what is sometimes portrayed in the media.
Correct. Yeah, they've actually never found a live virus, whether it's SARS-CoV-2 or COVID. I'm sorry, SARS-CoV-2, which causes COVID, Ebola, Marburg. They've never found that live virus in any of the bats. So it's just a lot of myths associated with it.
So it's no different than, a cow or a goat or a pig or anything else.
Nope.
They're animals.
And they eat them.
And they eat them.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. They've been doing it, and you don't hear about these big viral outbreaks or anything like that because they've been eating them for generations.
Okay, so the misinformation is kind of a cultural phenomenon.
Correct.
We don't eat bats. All we do is hear about them, or once in a while, I guess you could see them flying around. What about that? How do you observe bats at night?
The way that we observe them is actually, let me see if I got a quick picture. We actually put up acoustic monitoring equipment, and we've done this quite a bit. Hopefully. Basically what this is there's a microphone in here in a box linked to that. You guys can see it only stands maybe about 4 feet tall. So microphone in here, this box attaches to it, and what we do is we really just listen. And everything will download from that box onto a flash drive. So I can program it for a certain time at night for certain frequencies. And basically I take that flash drive, I put it into a server, it cleans it up, and I get sent back these 1.7 second blocks. And what I do is I look at the shape of the call and the frequency of the call, and I'm able to, with about 85-90% accuracy, identify the individual species.
Now,
so you're listening to them at night. And there is a whole world out there that we have no idea that surrounds us.
So, Brian, if you use night vision goggles, can you see bats?
We actually put up a bat house at a gentleman's property off of Kanapa Prairie. And what was wild is he had some IR cameras. And what he was doing is he filmed this too. This is a video we need to put back on our Facebook page, which Lubee's all over social media. You can find us on lubee.org. We're on TikTok with like 200,000 followers, which is crazy. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. But we had this video on our Facebook page. And anyway, he was looking at this thing right in the camera. And as soon as those bats were ready to come out, that thing lit up bright red. So we're watching a time clock here. That color of red is what we saw on that infrared camera. So it was amazing. You see these bats come out and then kind of pause, and then the IR camera gone again, and you just see this fire come out. So it was really cool to see that. He had some pretty high-tech equipment. So I will talk with our social media folks, get that back on there for folks to see because it's really, really cool.
Well, I'm really enjoyed our conversation today, and I've learned a lot. Mm-hmm. And I hope that our listeners and viewers have learned a lot. Meldon Law and Friends, you can check us out on Meldon Law and Friends Facebook page, YouTube, 37 different audio platforms, just about any place that you get your podcast content. We're available. Brian Pope, thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you all for listening and watching Meldon Law and Friends. And we'll be back next week, Tuesday at